your Zoom screen.
I don't know if everybody could hear that, but we're recording this for this webinar for people who can't attend, and we'll send the links out so they can catch up with what we're going to be talking about and all that today.
Great. Yeah, and we'll also be sharing some links to a Padlet in the chat for you, so you can add your thoughts to those.
One thing we'd like you to do too is that when you come into chat, can you write your name and which school you're from and something you like about your job? Just gives us a bit of a start about where everybody's coming on board with.
So before we get underway today, we really want to acknowledge the challenging times that are facing us all at the moment. COVID has certainly created some health issues and some challenges for us, but particularly when we work in our schools, when we work with children, when we work with families and our wider communities. It certainly highlighted some of the challenges and uncertainties in our employment as support staff and as science technicians in particular. And when we work within a system that cannot keep pace with the conditions of employment that are required for the 21st century, and also the nature of the times that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, so this is why our pay equity is, our mahi here is really crucial, that we get the opportunity to come together, because, you know, lots of people work better than anything, and share the building blocks to getting this pay equity through all the obstacles like COVID had put in there, but all the differences will make in our future. So, you know, this is where all this pay equity is going to come into it.
Okay, so let's start off by asking you to pop into chat one thing that you know about pay equity.
Hopefully you know lots, so we don't have to help you out.
And that's great. I can see a few of you introducing yourself in the chat too. Hi Lee, lovely from Tairāwhiti there. Lytton is relaxed and friendly. Fantastic to be in that environment.
Yeah.
Certainly, Pam, loving the autonomy of your job.
So everybody's kind of cool with the pay equity and where are we going? Or, you know, what it means.
It's great.
Yeah.
Lots of people enjoying the children, enjoying science.
Okay, I can't read everything that Elizabeth said. What did she say about it? Oh, sorry, missed it. I can't see most of the conversation.
So yeah, I mean, really, I think a lot of you have captured it. The principles of pay equity are equal pay for work of equal value. And it's really about the historical undervaluation of women in the workforce. And what we are trying to do is to understand the value of that work through the pay equity process. And when we do that, we look at skills, we look at the responsibilities you undertake, the degree of effort involved for a job, the demands you face, and your conditions of work. And we look at how that values and compare it with a male-dominated job.
Yeah. Now, will I go on with my little bit, Louise? Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah, the NZEI have taken these claims of pay equity for, they've done it with the admin staff, we're doing it with the science techs and the librarians, but we're just going to concentrate on the science techs because that's who we are at the moment. And they've agreed that we've got an argument here that we are under, well, that we need to get into this equality, but a bit more. We have actually interviewed science techs, as quite a few of you might have been interviewed, and about what your work is and what you're doing and everything else. So all those interviews have been finished now, and it also included Liz, lots of other stuff. So the next stage is, like Louise is going to say, is we're going to start finding some comparatives that they can say, well, these technicians do this. What do a man-dominated role out there can cross over and do that? So that's what we're up to now. So it is moving forward, even though you don't think it's going fast enough. And in these COVID times, we're doing quite well, actually.
Yeah, so we're in the process of looking for comparators now, and they will be, as Barb mentioned, those male-dominated roles with jobs of equal value. There's also a repository that are held anonymously, so we are able to access those as well. And we will also be looking for some people to interview those comparators. So watch out for that information that will come through via an email to anyone who's interested. So we'll be looking for people to take on the role of interviewer.
Which is quite a hard role, that one, because I couldn't do it. You have to scribe. So anybody out there with a talent of taking shorthand would be cool. Okay, the other thing that we were looking at too is what the main issues are needed to address around science technicians in our schools. So if you've got any issues that you might want to put up on chat, that would be awesome, so we can get into that one. And also outcomes that you want to see with this pay equity, like what's coming through on that one.
So there's a Padlet, a link to a Padlet in chat. If you want to click into that, and you can share with us the main issues that you think need to be addressed for science technicians.
Yeah.
Kia ora, have you been able to access the Padlet? I can't see anyone making a start. Oh, there's a few of you on there though.
Good, I'm glad people out there know what they're doing.
Yeah, so somebody's just popped in the issue of low pay and having other people really understand what your role is. And that's part of what we're going to talk about further on today when we look at the GARs. Career progression. PLD is an issue for people, as is high workload. And obviously having to fight for appropriate resources within the school.
Isn't this right, Louise? If some of you agree with some of these that are going up, instead of writing yours out, you can just like it.
Yes.
And yeah, and so then we can get more numbers on those likes, and it will get up there to, you know, which ones are really that we could sort of list them a bit more. So that's so, oh yeah, I can see all the love hearts coming up. Oh, that's wonderful. Lack of resources, you know, that's a real big one.
Mm. That's great. That gives us a really kind of wide-ranging picture of all the issues that you are continuing to face. Yeah, lots of people with no backup when you're on leave, low pay.
Someone put on about lab managers is in the claim. No, we're just looking at science technicians, because that lab manager one's a totally different ball game at the moment. Let's just get this one. Let's get us all in an even playing field first, and then we can devise. Because once you're a science lab manager, that's a whole big ball game because of your qualifications to do that. So that needs to be addressed too.
A lot of people saying that recognition for your variety of skills and what you bring to the position in terms of life skills is important. Great, that's a fantastic encapsulation.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
So now we're sort of thinking about that and linking to that. What outcomes would you really like to see from a pay equity settlement? So while you're adding that into chat, let's just think about, there are several processes running concurrently for support staff at the moment. So we have running alongside the pay equity process, we also have the support staff collective agreement negotiations going on. So that is your terms and conditions of employment that cover support staff and skills, particularly those who are NZEI members. They are generally renegotiated around every 3 years, depending on the term that's agreed to. And this covers your terms and conditions of employment and your pay for all support staff across schools. Now, the pay equity claim process is completely different, and this is a one-off process. We only get one go at this. It has to be really robust. This is the only opportunity we have to fully describe what you do as science technicians and get everything recognised. And this is why the process needs to be done carefully and stepped out carefully. We need to make sure that it is done so that everything is taken into account. Pay equity also seeks to redress this historic undervaluation that you've highlighted on that Padlet. And you know, some of that is because this work is done by women.
Yeah, definitely.
So there were other things that can also be identified through the pay equity process. And if we think back to teacher aides, the PLD, that was certainly initially addressed through the pay equity settlement for teacher aides. And there's also other ways like campaigning that we can make a difference to your employment terms and conditions. Yes, that's interesting. The general areas of responsibility that we're going to look at today, when we fit into that, when pay equity comes into being, there has been in the past a sort of grading process, looking at the matrix and looking at where your position and what you do fits in. So that hopefully will address doing things that you're not paid for. So it's having that current job description and knowing what you do is really important.
So is this when they're going to bring up the link for the portal, Louise, or?
Yeah, so I think we can sort of talk about these are the areas of general responsibility. These are like the categories that have been identified through the interviewing that was done with science technicians.
Now you've got to remember, folks, that under these headings, like you've got creating, maintaining, I'm just reading the second one down, and transporting resources and equipment. When you actually go into the Word document that the government's come out, there's a whole lot of other things. That's just a heading. And this is where we need everyone to get on board. I know it's a long document to read, but you need to read that and see, is there something we've missed in these interviews that you can add in and say, and well, this should be added. Like I've seen, I'm sorry, I can't read all your chats, but I've seen someone pop up with about resources. So there might be a heading in here about, you know, some of the things here building. Oh, no, where was it? You know, that might need to be to the effective functioning of the school, that you can't effectively actually do an experiment if you don't have the gear and the right gear and you're making it up as you go along. So the students are actually seeing a sort of, you know, different way instead of having it really nicely set up. So that's where you really come into it, about going into this portal, which we're going to go through a bit more later in another couple of slides, and put your all these comments in there under these headings as you go through it.
Yeah, I think that, Kristen, if we could ask you to please share the portal online with everybody so you can have a look at it now, and we will, there we go, just I see popped into chat, there is a link that you can go in to that yourself.
Can you go back up a little? Yeah. So that's the website you log into, and so you're looking at that, and this is they want us to get this. This is a draft, and they want some feedback on it. So that's really good. Now, when you go down a bit, you'll come into lots of things, and then they go, give us your views. Don't go on to that online survey as yet. What you really need to do, and please tell everybody this, go into the Word document and open that up. And once you're in there, and we'll show you how you can see all the next bit. So are you going to share that one, Louise?
I certainly am.
Oh, she's wonderful. Now, I know it looks small because it's just the way our one's set up, but once you get into there, you can see all what the government, they just make it really unhealthy for us to read it, or so people don't. There's all your, you're going to keep going down, and before you get into these, there's your headings, and then they ask you to tap in there. And that's where you put any activities that you think are missing, and you can put them in there. And so every one of those 10 responsibilities that came up before are spread out. So it's made it a 22-page document or something like that. But under each heading, you'll have them all lined out a bit more, like this one here, say storing resources and monitoring stock levels, and then it goes into what all those explanations are. If you think there's something missing in there, you've got an opportunity to write it down. You might want to print it out and then write notes down before you do this online. You might want to, I know that there's different science technicians all over New Zealand who are in cluster groups, or there's one or two in the same town. You might want to meet over coffee with it and just share some ideas. Even new sci-tech talk, and a lot of you will know what that means, to actually, you know, like, what does this mean? Am I on the right wavelength? You know, that sort of thing. The most, so it's quite a lengthy document, as you can see, but it'd be worth making sure that everything's in there. Like Louise said, we need to make all this from all of us and the input, so the government knows it's not just, you know, 100 people moaning about something.
So these are the general areas of responsibility. These have been identified from the interviews done with science technicians. Okay, so what needs to happen now is you guys need to look closely at this and see if there is anything that's missing, because the more robust this is, the more it contains, we get a better picture of what your matrix, this will contribute to what your matrix or your job gradings will look like.
Now, remember too that we've got, I think I put out on SciTech Talk about less visible skills. And that's very important. So hopefully some people had to think about that and worked out what this was, what these skills are. I came up with one about communication, how, you know, some people can communicate and read people because of their working in a family, being a mother, all sorts of things like that. It's those invisible ones that we really need to crystallize in here. So Louise is just going right down all those things that you can have time in your own to have a look at, and have, you know, really put some more feedback into it.
So there's quite a short time frame to do this as well. So it's the ministry portal is open only until the 5th of April. So please put a big circle around that in your diary and make sure that you get your feedback in before then. The first screen that Kristen shared was the ministry portal. So it has to be done online. This is just a Word document that you can download to have a closer look at.
And then you can add your comments in there, and then you've got to go back onto that survey and do the online survey, and then do it that way. But then you'll know what the interviewers have actually come up with and all those things. See that one there, you click on that, it asks you these questions, and it's quite easy to do. Any questions? Is anybody? But please, people, I mean, there's only a small group tonight that we can get out. We've only got till the 5th of April, so we really need to really push it with everyone else that's a science technician throughout New Zealand. So if we, yeah, so we'll be able to share this a bit more and go online and have a look more on it.
So also in thinking about how we can achieve better outcomes now and also in the future for science technicians, one of the things we need to do is grow our voice. One of the great ways to be able to do that is, if you're not a member of NZEI yet, please think about joining us today. The louder our voices, the more power we have, and the more we can make a difference. If we act together, you know, we do have a real impact.
And the very important thing that Louise is saying is that like it was only because of NZEI that's actually got science technicians up there, because when the union went to the government and said all these science technicians and librarians, and they said, who are these people? We've never even heard of them. It's because all the high schools throughout New Zealand and colleges put us down as teacher aides, support people, anything else other than a science technician. So the government came back and said, right, and they told all the executive officers or whoever your pay person is to actually change our code on our pay slip to a science technician. So if you don't know, check your pay slip or go to your executive officer or whoever does the pays and make sure you're on that, because that's when the government realised that there is over 400 to 500 of us throughout New Zealand. So the more people we have in here, the more that we're going to get this pay equity. Otherwise, they're going to think, oh, we're only looking at a couple of hundred. Who cares? So, and this is why we're sort of doing it with the librarians. The administration staff are about a head or two in front of us. So we're piggybacking, you know, the teacher aides, the administration staff, and now it's our turn. So this is where we're going. This is what's happening. To make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So too, the more feedback the ministry gets from you as science technicians, the better. If you know about a colleague at another school who hasn't attended today, please share the online portal with them. Again, the link's in the chat, and you can go onto that and download that separate Word document, but the online survey is in that first link in the ministry portal. So yeah, do talk to your colleagues at other schools. Every school should submit an online feedback. And that would be really powerful, and it would really send the ministry a message too about how many people are on board with this, waiting for progress on pay equity. So if you click on the link in the chat, you can access we're calling it GARs. It stands for General Areas of Responsibility, the GARs document. We're going to also send out that link in an email to you all after the webinar, so you'll have it.
Will this recording go out to the ones that couldn't come too, Louise?
Absolutely. So the recording will, I imagine, be attached to the follow-up email, so you'll have access to that as well. And of course, any NZEI members who are science techs will get this as well.
Okay, cool. It's quite nerve-wracking doing a web bar or whatever.
Webinar, yeah, it's a little bit like unusual not have people talking back to you.
Yeah, it's just looks like Louise and I are talking to each other, and there's no one else here. So, got any more questions or anything? Or
so we hope you found this useful. Please do put any further questions into the chat as any final things that you would like to comment on, and then we'll give that a couple of moments and we'll just close together with karakia. Can the link go out on SciTech? Barbara, can you organise that?
I can, yeah, I can post it, and a few others have done it before, so yes, I can. I don't think it's I don't think the people that run it will be. I think they'll be for it. So I haven't asked the president of stands yet, but
we've had a question come through about timeframes. How long it's going to take? Would you like to address that, and I can jump in if needed?
I don't know, Louise would. I know that we're just in, we've done the interviews with the science technicians. We need to find the comparators, interview them, put all that together. Does it come back for us to have a look at that again? I'm not quite sure.
No, so once the GARs consultation is completed, they will be finalised and go off into the great beyond. And yes, you're right, we will be starting the comparator interviews relatively soon. And we are looking for more NZEI members who want to be involved in that process, because it's quite interesting to see how things work behind the scenes. So we'll be getting out some expressions of interest on that. Once the comparator interviews are completed, we'll go through a similar process with them as we have with the GARs, where we'll gather together that evidence and come up with literally a comparison. And then we run it through a specific pay equity tool that we've agreed to with the ministry. And that assesses what are the actual differences, what are the gaps in pay, what are the gaps in conditions, access to PLD, what are the other things that come up under pay equity? I've forgotten.
Well, it tells us whether there is gender-based undervaluation for
Absolutely.
a start.
Yeah.
So that gives us the grounds for the pay equity negotiations, which is what happens next.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then we pull together our negotiation team, and we go into those negotiations with the ministry. And it's really important to remember, like Louise mentioned earlier, that these negotiations aren't like collective agreement negotiations where we go in with a set of claims, the ministry have their mandate, and we discuss and we come to something that sort of meets in the middle, so to speak. What we've done here is it's a real evidence-based process. So we've put a lot of research into it. And what we're doing is we're presenting with the ministry this piece of data, and we're going, right, here's the gaps. We might go in and we'll say, okay, there is just a straight off $4 an hour pay gap between the people at the bottom. So let's address that. Let's close that gap. And what do we need to do to make that happen? So it's not a kind of a give and take. And once a settlement comes out the other side, it will be presented to you for consideration and to look at and to vote on. And then it gets passed, usually. We haven't yet to have a pay equity process that is not passed, and then we go through an implementation phase. So while we can't give you any guarantees of what the time frame is, just be assured that we are moving as fast as we possibly can, and we're moving a lot faster than we ever did with the teacher aids. We've got some better legislation in place that allows us to do that. We know there may be some bumps in the road, and if you're following what's happening with the administrators at the moment, we have hit a bit of a wall
Speed wobble.
yeah, a bit of a speed wobble, I would say, yeah, with the ministry, and we've had to take the negotiation settlement phase to the ERA, the Employment Relations Authority, just to sort some things out. And these are the times where it's really crucial that we get more members on board, because we know that through the power of our members, we can make things happen. And we can sit back and say, right, I'm going to sit back and wait and let this happen, because it's a process. We know that. But we also know that our membership numbers are quite low. Among science techs, among librarians, among administrators, they're quite low among support staff in general. And we don't have the bargaining power. We don't have the industrial strength or the power to make things happen faster. So it's a little bit like when you're driving a car. If you've got your foot on the accelerator, you're going forward. But if you've got 75% of the people who are in your car sitting with their foot on the brake, you're going to go a lot slower. So what we need to do is have more people on the accelerator than on the brake. And that's what will make it go faster. It's just my little spiel.
Yes, and I think there's an outline of that pay equity process. There's a little flyer that I understand may have been put in the chat, but will definitely be emailed to you after the webinar today. And that's a really good thing to share if you have an NZEI notice board. I hope that you do at your school, particularly because it lets other people, other staff members, know what you are going through and what some of the issues are. So, you know, don't be afraid to share that with your colleagues. They should be supporting you at this point as well. And it does highlight those issues like, you know, like you have workload issues.
Mm.
Do other staff members know that? Do they even know really what you do? A really good opportunity to generate some conversation and kōrero in your school.
Yeah.
I noticed a question, Barb, about the coding that you were talking about. Do you know what that, can you just mention what that code is again?
It's meant to say that you're a science technician on your pay slip, not a teacher aide or administration staff or a librarian, because you get different codes. And I know the government put it out that because our school had to change mine and I come under a different code. I can't remember what it looks like on my pay slip, sorry. And I do know that when I was talking to someone else, another science technician, they had a slightly different they had a number, or they were talking about a number. So I'll double check that, or we'll ask about that on SciTech Talk, and someone will come back with it.
And but you could also ask your administrator at school, because they would be clear about what your designation is.
Yeah, they sometimes try and fob us around, but you make sure that they don't. But yeah, you have to be coded under a different, not a teacher aide.
It's S89 in payroll.
Oh, that's it. Thank you. You're so wonderful. What is it again?
What should be on your payslip?
S89.
S89. There you go, girls. Oh, and gentlemen, sorry. There is quite a few male science technicians now. It's not just a female-dominated role.
So thank you very much for your attendance, everyone, today, and we'll just close together with a karakia. So, ki ruru mai, aho ora, aho kaha. Aho maia. Ki runga, ki raro, ki roto, ki waho. Rere rere ho pai, mārere. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, I forgot to thank our wonderful behind the scenes technicians and assistants. Thank you very much, guys, for all your answers in chat and for popping in, Amanda.
Yes.
Right.